Jenny Baldwin. I'm the scenic designer.
Hi, I'm Courtney Omstad, the costume designer.
Hi, I'm Colby. I'm the lighting designer.
Leiko Huffman, projection design.
And Maddie Baird, the sound designer.
I'm so happy to be with all of you sharing this virtual space as we get to revisit our just such an exciting process creating Metamorphosis. It was such a personal piece for me and for a lot of us and for everyone involved in different ways. And it was just so challenging in so many ways, of course, even to this day. And I'm just so thankful that we get to have this moment to talk about it, to get everyone excited about what we were doing and what was brewing in our process, and give them a little bit of context of the world of Metamorphosis as they experience it through these actors and characters very shortly. I just want to start by sharing my way into Metamorphosis. I think something that's really important in every project I direct is that art must start a conversation. It must, whatever we experience, it must trigger a curiosity. It must sort of ask us to question the world around us and actually make us question ourselves. And so the big question around this was otherness. What does it mean when you reveal your truth, who you really are, and that's not accepted by the people around you? I mean, that kind of otherness is something that I believe everyone has experienced in their own way. And that is the story of Kafka's Metamorphosis to me. And that was my way in.
Yeah, thanks, Jessica. That otherness, I think for me, more translated into the fear of the unknown. I think that we all have that sort of fear of death or whatever, and seeing the family really have that, and how that translates onto the relationship with Gregor and the injustices that he faces because of that, just that fear of that otherness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think for me, it was about defining what that meant, actually attaching images and actual tangible things to what truth meant. And what for this world of the family and for Gregor himself, you know, because he's kind of unaware and unsure of himself as that he begins to go through this. So what types of tangible things about himself is he wanting to push away or not acknowledge?
So with costume design, you're thinking about characters, and the characters that we all, I believe, feel like represent the unknown are the families. So we wanted to create something that felt very separate from our own world. So in that sense, the family, the world surrounding Gregor is what we see as the unknown as the audience perspective, versus Gregor feels a lot more natural. And in that way, he represents us. And as Jessica says, we've all felt that way before, like the other.
Yeah, and through sound, I really wanted to use synthetic and real sounds to kind of illustrate this natural and unnatural world.
As a lighting designer, I found my way into the story through this arc of emotional vulnerability and physical vulnerability that Gregor is going to experience. We're all different. Some of us are different on the outside, some of us are different on the inside. And unfortunately, that's consequences. And that's the story that you're gonna hear.
So there's a lot of, you're gonna hear us talk a lot about bug-like, because if you know Kafka's story, he wakes up into what we believe is a bug, and we kind of define it in our own ways. So let's just talk a little bit about that. How do we reconcile that in all the different parts of the design?
So this contrast shows its way, shown through color for me. The color of, warmer tones, natural tones kind of reflected this real world, this stylized world that we're creating. And then green, unflattering colors and cooler colors reflected the real world, the world where Gregor is existing. So that's where contrast showed up for me.
Contrast for me was in the same vein, very much about embracing color and also texture. I think once projections developed the vocab of really embracing Gregor's story, that meant really understanding the organic, I guess, sort of rebellious version to the other elements of the design, and wanting to embrace the nastiness. It's not really nastiness, but to the family, this nastiness, this organic, this really grimy world that they just would rather not deal with.
I think so much of this process for us was about collaboration, and for Scenic, I was able to work with lighting design, specifically in this idea of the sterility and the almost the hostile boundaries that are created by the family and the way that they interact with Gregor. And on the reverse, we had this organic side with Gregor as he grew, as he developed in his mind and his body and exploring his space. And we were able to use more earth tones and organic materials in order to identify that. But again, with the set, because the set is one unit that doesn't move, there was a balance that had to be there. And so I really relied on my collaborators in order to be able to like heighten this for one scene and then heighten it for in another way for another.
For costumes, the design process started with the silhouettes, and then we moved to color. So I got my color ideas mostly from collaborating with Leiko and Jenny. So Jenny has these really cool props that are this jade green, there's mints. So there are a lot of these cool tones that start to represent the world. So I took that and used this very limited color palette for the family, which included just cool tones, so blues, greens, and just black, silver, and white. So it's so limited that it represents this artificial world. And the opposite, which would be Gregor, which is just these warm, natural tones, and that you can see in Leiko's projections.
Yeah, sound doesn't really work with like literal color, but I was so inspired by the colors and the visuals that the other designers were coming up with. And that really inspired me with the underscore process. And I think that was my way of illustrating the colors that I got from Gregor or the family.
I was very lucky to go into rehearsals, and that's always very helpful for costume designers. So there's a lot of physical things that happened. Jesca's a very physical director, and I love that. So for the family, we all kind of collaborated and decided the family would be very restricted, and Gregor would be the opposite, very free, very flexible. So the costumes really were designed based off of the movement of the actors, and specific alterations were made to the costumes depending on how things went in rehearsals. So that was really fun.
So it was one of the most physical fittings you've had, of them rolling around, falling on the floor, trying all their staging like in the fittings. Hearing those stories was so great.
There's this really great Orson Welles quote that is, "The enemy of art is the absence of limitations." And I think that sometimes we think of, oh, theater, it's so free, but you've really got to consider and say like, no, there's going to be people walking on this stage. They have to be able to use this and really they have to be the ones with the freedom. And I have to be the one who thinks beforehand and says, okay, these are my limitations. These are my restrictions in order to make this safe, in order to keep it in budget. And it was the work with the actors that really helped me realize some of that.
Yeah, definitely rehearsals was so informative to my process. Seeing the actors just be so playful and experimental was, I don't know, it was just like nothing I've ever seen before. And that was really helpful in getting like my timings right, and just sitting down with the other designers while they're rehearsing was just incredibly informative.
Yeah, and I would say over time, having been to, I remember the very first stumble through, and then right before we were about to go into tech, attending a couple of rehearsals and seeing how that grew just from point A to point B, and seeing how what you had originally planned still kind of fit, but then it became more nuanced down the road. And so that was an informative, I guess, part of the process for me to really understand that you can have one thing and have an initial idea, but then the actors can completely make it so much better. So
much of this is about process, and I think we as designers have to also go through Metamorphosis with the show in order to really like get the ball rolling.